So here's a square root equation lesson. First thing you're going to do is you're actually just going to tear off the front page. Okay, you can pull out the staple if you want and just leave it, doesn't really matter. And then go ahead and cut it in half. And so that looks like this. You can fold it and then cut it if you want, or just cut it. Either way is fine. And we're going to put this, okay, I'm on the left side of page 26. I'm on the left side of page 26. Okay, and I'm going to take this down. And we're going to talk about what are squares and square roots to start with, and then we'll talk about putting them in an equation. But once we understand what they are, the equations will be a lot easier. So here's what a square is. This is 1, right? This is like 1 unit. It could be 1 mile, 1 centimeter, 1 anything. This is also 1. And if I find the area of this square, it will be 1 times 1, which is 1, right? I can see I have 1 square box. So basically this box illustrates that 1 times 1 equals 1. Right? That's what that box is telling me. And so another way to say that is that 1 squared equals 1, right? This means 1 times 1 equals 1. This box is telling me, look, this is 1, 2, this is 2, and then 1, 2. And when I find the area of this box, 2 times 2, it's 1, 2, 3, 4 boxes. So 2 times 2 is equal to 4. And another way of saying that is that 2 squared, 2 times 2, is equal to 4. So then there's this other operation. So this is squared, right? And squared means you take a number and you multiply it by itself. The square root is the opposite. Square root is the opposite. It is the inverse operation of squared. So just the way that addition and subtraction are opposites, square and square root are opposites. So if 1 squared is 1, right? 1's kind of a weird example, but that means that I can also take the square root of 1, and it's 1. Now, like I said, this is sort of a weird example. Let's look at this one. If 2 squared is 4, right? So I square something, I get 4. If I then square root it, I get back out 2, right? These operations sort of undo each other. So if I have a 2 and then I square it, and then I square root it, I end up back with a 2 again, right? Because they undo each other, so I ended up where I started. And we can also see that here. If I make a square using 4 boxes, then I look, okay, well, what's the distance along the side? It's 2, right? Here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 boxes. Right? What if I take the square root of 9? I made 9 boxes into a square, and then how many are along each side? Well, it's 3. Right? And notice I just sort of worked in reverse the other way. The other way I could have said it is, well, there's 1, 2, 3 along the side, 3 along the side. 3 times 3 is 9, right? Which means 3 squared is 9, and the square root of 9 is 3. Okay? Again, squares and square roots undo each other. One more, right? This is 4 along the side, 4. We can see that 4 times 4 equals, and we could count the boxes, but we know what it is. And so 4 squared is 16. And then the opposite, which is the square root of 16, is 4. Okay? And so here's, like, the big takeaway is this, and you can sort of squeeze it in wherever you have space. But squares and square roots undo each other. Okay, now this is really important because remember when we have equations and we're solving equations, we like things that undo each other. If we see addition, we do subtraction, right? If we see multiplication, we do division. And so undoing each other is really important when we're solving equations. So that's the left side of page 26. Then find the other half of that paper, because one thing that's really important is that we are actually just able to remember all of the squares and square roots. So you're going to take this paper, you're going to fold along this solid line here. So you're going to just fold in as neatly as you can. And I got pretty neat, not perfect. That's okay. folded. Right, and this copy isn't perfect either, but it does not have to be perfect. Right, but basically, this says, what's the square of these numbers, right? And so, what's the square of 5? 25, right? 5 squared. And so I'm actually just going to, right now that I've folded on the solid lines, I'm going to cut on the dotted lines. But watch, just the dotted line. So you see I have a fold right here. I'm just going to cut just to the fold like this. Okay, and I'm going to do it, and you should do it at the same time. And then I'm going to turn the paper around and do the other side too. This is going to be a study tool for you to help you quickly memorize all the squares and square roots. Right? If you already know your multiplication tables, you probably already know them, but this is good for you to have as a reference, just so that you feel automatic with the squares and square roots. So once you have this, you can pause if you don't have it yet, because I just want to show you how to use it really quick. There's sort of some obvious ways to use it, but there's some little tips and tricks that are good too. So on this side, I'm asking, what's the square of these numbers, right? And so what you would do when you're studying, I'm going to try to get a nice clean crease on these. Turning it over and creasing it is a good way to do it. Is I would say, okay, 5 squared, that's 25. And then I would open it. Say 7 squared, that's 49. 14 squared, I'm not sure. So what I would do is I would look, okay, it's 196. 14 squared is 196. 14 squared is 196. Then I would close it again. And that way I would know that I need to come back to that one, right? Then I keep going. 1 squared is 1. 12 squared, 137, right? Oh, that's wrong. It's 144, right? So I would just close it again so that I know that I need to come back to it. 2 squared is 4. 3 squared, 9 squared is 81. And I would keep going, leaving the ones that I need to study again closed, and then I would just review them again. So like I would go through this row, of course, and then I would come back and I'd say, okay, 14, what was 14? 14 squared is 1, I still can't quite remember. It's 196. Okay, keep it close. 12 squared was 144. Good, I got it that time. Okay, so now I open it, right? So that's a good way to study. But then, here's the key, right? Is once you have all of them open, then do it the other way. What's the square root of these numbers? Okay, square root of 25 is 5. Square root of 121 is 13. No, got it wrong. You can leave it open, right? And so you do the same thing, right? I know, okay, the square root of 9 is 3. The square root of 100 is 10. Maybe you don't know the square root of 144, so you check it. Okay, it's 12. But then you leave it open. And then you only close them all when you have all of them. So go through right now, before you continue, because it's going to make your life so much easier if you know these. Go through, start this way. Do them all, study them all until you know all the squares, and then have it open, and then study them all until you know the square roots, until you have it closed again. Okay, and then this is where this goes. You can tape it down now or after you're done, it doesn't matter. But this is the right side of page 26. And I'm just going to put one piece of tape on the top and one piece of tape on the bottom. Okay, and leave it like this. And you should study this before you continue and make sure you know all the squares and square roots. And that's it.